In our webinar today, we'll be zooming in specifically on how you can scale into Europe using meta ads in the native languages. So you don't need to break the bank on getting all the translations and everything in, or just taking lessons yourself to learn other languages. So what I would like to get you from this webinar today. Entering other countries is not a guessing game. It might sound like it's a big of a challenge to go into new markets, but when you know which pitfalls and strategies to follow, there's actually quite a clear and strategic roadmap you can follow, that you don't need to make all the mistakes. My goal for you today is to know and to have the feeling that you have a clear action plan there. If that's not the case, please reach out to me because I want to deliver on that promise. I'm sure I packed all the value for you here, but it might be the case that you have just some questions left. You can do that after the webinar on my email. Who's this webinar for? 3 different people. Number 1, entrepreneurs that are already looking ahead for new markets. So they're just not, they didn't enter yet, but they are really actively looking to enter new markets with their brand. Secondly, entrepreneurs that are already selling in different markets, but feel a little bit stuck, maybe on a little bit of a plateau, and just want to find out how to scale to the next level there. Or number 3, CMOs and marketing managers who are lost or are lost by the requests from the company to go into new markets, but have no clue where to start or what's next for them to deliver on their KPIs and targets. So to give a bit of context, how did we get started? How did I end up here, and how did I and my company get all those learnings? Back in 2019, I was just a little forward still, and I was drop shipping after my university. I was selling those wonderful garlic presses. And that went actually quite well. We were spending about 1K a day in the Netherlands, which is for the Dutch market quite a significant budget. So my feeling was that, okay, let's go big. We're going to make it now. This is going to make me rich. Well, my thoughts of going Europe, here we come, didn't really match the expectations, didn't really match the outcomes there. It wasn't that easy, to be honest. So I went live in basically every European country, and the results were the following. I had 5 sales in Germany, I had 8 sales in Sweden, 1 in France, and a total staggering revenue of 210 euros, but also with an outspend of 2,000 euros. So, well, I learned my lesson there, and it wasn't as easy as I hoped. Fast forward to today, we've basically made every single mistake in the process. But by the end of 2022, we finally found a strategy that helped us scale into multiple countries for multiple brands as well within our agency, and get results like you see below as well. But like I said, it hasn't always been an easy ride. And before I go into the what to do, I would first like to touch with you on the why. Why even bother, and why there's actually maybe a necessity to go into different markets as a European brand. Well, I see 2 really clear points for this. There's the entrepreneurial spark that every entrepreneur has, and there's just the unit economics that are needed to run a company. This entrepreneurial spark is mainly your voice, the voice in your head that just believes in your product. My product just deserves a bigger market, deserves more eyeballs, deserves more revenue, more growth, more prosperity. Or maybe you have the feeling, let's go, it's going well. My first country, like I had, this is going to make me rich. I need to get it to as many people as possible. Or you're just dreaming of this really big brand with, let's say, 50 people in there, in the office, all sorts of products, brand recognition. That's one side of the equation. The other side are the unit economics. It's not your driving force, but it's the company's driving force. And there's a really easy rule we can live by, maybe famous by some people from Alex Ramosi, but the more people know you, the more you can sell. But what do you do if you've reached all the people in your local market? And your local market can be all sorts of things. It can be literally your city, it can be your province, it can be your country, a few countries. But if you've reached the limit of that region, you need to expand your region to keep growing. And how do you know you've reached your limits? Well, the moment that you're spend to revenue ratios don't really work anymore. They don't match your previous numbers. You need to spend more to bring in more revenue. It just doesn't really scale as well anymore. Even maybe you need to start acquiring people at a loss, and that's basically impossible if you have a one-off product. If you have, of course, a recurring product that will be possible for you. But for every single company, there's this one point in history where you have to make a drastic change if you want to go to the next level. And if you miss that moment or you just skip out on that moment, eventually the brand will slowly start to decline. Your competitors will catch up because they will go into the other markets. They will maybe spend more. You just don't have the funds and the fuel anymore to keep waiting there. I see there we go. For some perspective, I would like to show you the plateaus that are reached in the USA. And for some people and most people, the US is also the big North Star if it comes to e-commerce. They have all these stories of brands spending 10K a day, 400K a month, $1 million a month, and maybe numbers way more crazy than this. There's always this question like, how can they do it? And how can it's the case that we cannot do it? Well, the fact is they are just reaching more people. They're reaching more people, so they are able to scale faster with their brands and go to bigger revenue numbers, build bigger companies as well. And maybe your voice in your head is telling you something like this now. And don't let it. USA is just a way bigger market. They have way more GDP. That's not us. They have way more people. Yeah, but the US is way richer. People have a higher disposable income there. Or maybe even you're telling yourself now, yeah, but the European e-commerce market is not so well developed. In Italy, people still pay with cash. Germany still pays with cash. In France, maybe the internet connection is not as well as they are in the US. So yeah, probably, but it's not possible in the EU. I will tell you, you're just tricking yourself here. You're just finding excuses for yourself to not dive into those different markets. With the European Union and also the Schengen Agreement, that will bring about 30 countries to your disposal. 30 countries you can just go into with a click of a button. You can ship your products without any borders, any legal issues, any other regulation policies you need to comply with. And maybe you think, yeah, but the US, the shipping is way cheaper. It's not. It's also expensive to ship from LA to New York, and it's also expensive to ship from Amsterdam to Milan. We just need to make it work. Secondly, the European e-commerce market isn't that much smaller than the US one. It's about 75% of the US market, but we're also growing faster. So we're catching up, and I expect actually that like a year or 5 will be matching the US. The forecasts are that might overtake the US as well, because generally speaking, there's a higher income in all European countries combined. And lastly, COVID changed the EU e-commerce. With COVID, everyone went online, also in Germany, also in France, also in Italy. So we just need to make it work. We need to adapt to the cultures there to really scale and grow there as well. But what makes it so frustrating then? What makes it so frustrating to scale into those other markets? Maybe you're screaming it already to me into the screen. But there are 2 really important things here. Language, which is the things where everything starts. And secondly, culture. Culture you also have in the US, but language you don't. So language is our first big bottleneck. Culture is the one that makes it really scalable in the end. And whatever market we will enter, whatever country we will go into Europe, if we go to Sweden, if we go to Denmark, Germany, France, the Netherlands, we always need to adapt for those languages. But how? How do we adapt for those languages without breaking the bank and without getting to know all those languages ourselves? Before I will show you that, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Volkert. I'm the founder and CEO of Explicit. We are a performance creative advertising agency, originally from the Netherlands. I'm Dutch personally, but we're a global team, having team members all around Europe or around the globe to help us adapt with all the cultures we're working with. And we help our clients grow across Europe with native ad creatives that scale. That being said, let's dive in. So there are two typical journeys we see when people dive into a new market. And to be honest, we did this ourselves. This is basically our journey as well. Back in 2020, 2021, beginning 2022. Journey number one is running with an English website, English ads, and just say, yeah, we have everything settled. Let's just dive in. There will probably also there will also be people in those countries that speak English. We will just take those people. It's good enough. We will just get there. That's journey number one, case number one. Journey number two is a bit more highly committed. People are translating the website, investing in that, maybe getting people to check the website if it's all native. They translate their winning creatives from their home market, and they're translating every ad copy as well. So there's sort of this nice go live pool. Generally speaking, 10, 15 ad creatives, a few ad copies, and a properly translated website. Sadly, they both had the same outcomes. People either end up with sort of a bitter taste. Why? Because they get stuck at a certain level. They get stuck at a few €1,000 ad spend, let's say between 2 and 8, generally speaking, that they're not really able to push through and scale to the next level. And the revenue they make doesn't really cover the time and money invested to keep running in the country as well. And secondly, they don't even keep it running with a vision to once maybe grow on it. They just stop running completely because they see it's unprofitable for them. And then they start telling all those stories. And we told even these stories to our clients back in the day. And I feel quite guilty of saying it, to be honest. But things like, yeah, my product just doesn't really work there. There's just other people in the market already. They've taken our market share. It's done already there. Or yeah, maybe later, maybe in a few years we will try again if we have a bit more budget. Or maybe they say, oh, let's just test another market. Probably there will be other people there. And I heard in the Scandinavian countries, they speak English really well. Let's just go in with English there. Might work for us as well. But again, you're just finding excuses here. Because the only way to grow is to reach more people. And if you reach more people in their own market, in their own language, you reach even more people. And if it's culturally, if it matches the culture that these people have, you reach even more people. So if you go for English ads with a limited amount of translated ads, you're still capping your potential. You're still capping your growth ability. And maybe you just target completely wrong people. These people are just not interested in your brand. Consider running ads in English in your home market, or running ads with only 10 ads in your home market. Probably not going to work. But well, then we had 2022 December, and we finally found a catch. We found a catch for a pet brand running in Germany. And from there, we started developing our explicit multi-language system. And developing this system, we had a few key questions we need to answer and validate to make sure it's really working. And we can, well, start implementing it for more clients, more brands, and from their scale as well. We had 3 benchmarks for that. Number one, we need to be able to make sure it works in all languages, specifically Danish, French, Dutch, German, Swedish, Italian, English, and Spanish. Basically unlocking the whole globe. It needed to make sure we kept persistent. So the chances of creating bottlenecks because we need to wait on something should be minimum. If those were high, well, staying persistent requires discipline, and discipline can fade, or motivation can fade. So we need to make sure it becomes basically impossible to stop. And lastly, we need to make sure that, well, whatever many countries we will be adding, we were not doubling the cost for our content every time we were adding a new country. Because that is just not scalable. That will make it a really big bottleneck in going to new markets, and will create those higher walls, and we will be losing a competitive edge over local players. So what is it? These 4 blocks with 2 intertwined lines. Number 1 and 2 are language and culture. This is the foundation. These are the things that just needs to be in place to make sure you can scale. Number 3 and 4 are volume and composable. Your ads need to have a certain volume, and you need to have a certain composability inside your production. Language or culture are attached to each other. We call those the soft edge. And we have the volume and composability. We call these the hard edge. But you need to have them all 4 to really be able to win inside different countries. Let me go over them one by one and then show how they work together. So first, like I said, it always starts with language. Language is the fundamental. If you don't ace the language, you will not ace the ads. But how do we do it? I mean, we are reliant on translators there. We need to also be sure that it becomes a native translation. And like you maybe have experienced in the past, you hired a translator. It might be good in terms of translation, but it just doesn't click. And we found that it's really important that the translator not only understands the culture, so they need to be in the country, they also need to understand direct response. What's direct response? They need to be able to trigger someone to click an ad and to buy. If it's just a proper translation, we can also ask AI. There's no emotion. The grammar will probably be correct. The words will probably be correct, but it just doesn't click. There's no force behind. So for that, there needs to be 100% freedom in the script writing for those different languages to adapt the script, to adapt the structure of the script, to flip the hooks, to flip the whole structure of sentences, instead of just translating them word by word. That's probably something we have been experiencing ourselves as well. That it can be a tricky thing if the translator is just translating the lines for you, which is normally required. But if they really need to make it clicking, they have to have that freedom. And lastly, we need to be able that we can guarantee that's accurate, that there's not like a strange sentence in there, or the structure of the lines don't match. So after testing a lot, working with creators, working with translators, working with agencies, everything, we found that hiring the content creators we work with as the translators is the best workflow there. These content creators are in the countries we're looking at. They are infiltrated in the culture. They live the culture. They are used to writing the scripts themselves already in the language. So they also have the direct response part. And afterwards, they also need to do the voiceovers. But from that voiceover, they get the vibe of the video. So if they create really complicated translations for themselves, it's a really complicated voiceover for them. So by doing that, they generally speaking already tend towards a more tone of voice driven translation. But still, we wouldn't be 100% sure if that translation is correct. As a result, we counter match them with another creator. So if you have 2 different scripts that are being translated, they counter check the other ones with the other creator for us, together with a little AI check. We haven't been able to master it yet on AI only because we cannot rely on it solely. Specifically for German and Dutch, it's really hard to make sure you match the words correctly. For English, it's different, but everyone speaks English already. By making sure these content creators are translating and doing voiceovers for us, we're able to just squeeze out a lot more from one script, because the investment in the script, the investment in the shots is there. We can just add a lot of translations and voiceovers from here as well. But if we have settled on the language, we also need to make sure we settle on the culture, because without the culture, it still doesn't click with people. So the important part to look at there is to make sure the voiceover is real. I'm going to jump to number 2, by the way. Number 1, and we'll come back in a bit. It needs to be real people. Even though in the US, people are using AI like crazy, and it works really well using English AI voiceovers, it only works in English so far. So playing, especially in like Scandinavian and Dutch, and maybe also German is still, playing with AI in those languages, it just doesn't match. There's not enough data for those systems to become a truly authentic voiceover. Funny story on this. Yesterday, we had a meeting with a client of us, and we just made an English ad for them as an iteration, and we used an AI voiceover for that. He said, well, this voiceover exactly matches the girl on screen. How did you find this voiceover actor? And we're like, well, we found it through AI because it's an AI voiceover. There the accuracy and the cultural relevancy is really, really close. But if we do the same in Dutch, it's just embarrassing. It's like if you ask someone that came into the country a few years ago, you always hear that it's not a native. And as long as that's the case, you instantly lose the culture trust. And if you lose trust, you basically lose the whole effect from your ads. Because if you lose the trust in this first click, or even before the click, you will never build it up afterwards. So making sure the culture, which is done by language and by tone of voice, clicks in the ad already, will translate all the way towards your funnel. You can even make mistakes later as long as your trust is already built up here, because otherwise it will never come to the final stages. So first, make sure that you have the voiceover done correctly by real people that speak the language. Secondly, make sure that the shots you use are matched with the culture. I'm going to give you exactly how you can do this at a scale later at composability, but make sure you have you have the shots not only for a Dutch house, but also for a German house. Well, even though these are quite similar, but let's say you run in Switzerland or in Sweden. It's winter. Well, all those countries have hills. So if you don't have any hills or the B-roll is there in a sunny Spain, the shots don't match up. So people will instantly close for your product, your ad, and your interest. So make sure you have these B-roll shots and housing shots and even product shots if they're multi-language versions of all those different products. So that way you can build scripts, build videos that align in the same culture, even though it's the same script, same angle, same hypothesis behind it. And lastly, which is a little bit bigger on culture, every culture has its own preferences. So a German prefers to see a bit more price-focused angle, is a bit more keen on price than a Dutch person, even though the Dutch have the name. But a Dutch person is more tend to work or reply better on a more heavily benefit driven. So what's in it for me? Why is this so well for me? A bit like the Americans. But Italian and French people tend to focus more on the design. Is it aesthetically pleasing? Does it look good? How does it fit into my interior? So you need to have less storytelling, more visually selling. Oh, there are way more than those three, but these are sort of the key ways you can sell a product. If you focus only on one because that's your home market's favorite, you will miss out on the other opportunities. So make sure inside your creative strategy, you keep testing all those different buying and psychology driven impulses. And by that, you can monitor per country what's working best. Maybe you know, okay, I run in Italy normally, so I need to focus on design. I'm going to make a benefit driven ad. You can say, okay, let's not make it for Italy. I highly suggest still run it in Italy because it's really likely that you will find it not a winner, but like a nice middle of funnel creative from there, but create the winner in Holland with that. So that way you can still have the multifunctional aspect of your creatives, but adapt them to all your European focus countries. Most important for your culture, it doesn't need to look translated. So no face ups, so no misaligned lips. Not a funny story on this. I was looking at a YouTube video earlier, I think this weekend. And there came an ad from Skechers in between. And Skechers is quite a big brand, so you would consider they know what they're doing, even though their audience is a little bit older. So they're famous from these Telcel commercials, but everything from that ad screamed not European. Everything screamed, I'm an American brand. It's a lip synced or a face dubbed video because you saw the lips. Oreo was also doing this a lot. And Lenore and like all those big conglomerates, that the lips don't add up with the voiceover you hear. So instantly my mind said, okay, this is not a Dutch ad. Even though the voice is Dutch, the words are accurate, but it just doesn't really match. So my trust goes down, 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 down. And exactly the same, but the scene you were sitting in, the scene didn't match a Dutch house or a Dutch vibe. It's like a really nice penthouse with a view, You don't have views in Holland. It's like flat, so there's nothing. If that doesn't match, you already lose so much trust that you're not going to build. So your product needs to do so much lifting to compensate for that trust. And probably if another company already in that market is having that trust because they're local, they can have probably even slightly worse product, but still win. So make sure it doesn't look translated from a view perspective, the voiceover you use, the tone of voice you use there, and also that you don't use any shots where you see someone speaking. Seeing someone speak is sort of a killer for an ad. Even though you might think AI is there, AI is not there yet, believe me. Make sure you work around it with your shots. That was the soft side. Let's dive into the hard side. So the hard edge is more of the fundamentals you need to implement into your company to make sure you hold on and you win. And volume is sort of the end result there. So you need to master your volume and ad creation. I hope you already do this in your home market. So a sort of a triggering question there. In your home market, I hope you at least test between 10 and 20% of your ad budget is allocated to testing. 10 or 20% of your ad budget, which means generally speaking, between 50 to 100 creatives a month, depending, of course, on your ad budget. If you spend 100K, it needs to be more. But generally speaking, for European brands, it's between 50 and 100. And then if you consider how much most brands are testing in other countries, you will be disappointed. Because there, your testing budget is 100%, not 50, not 20. As long as you're not scaling there, it's 100%, and it will slowly decrease over time. But your minimum ad creators a month is also 50. It's not that you can do less volume and hope to get the same results. It's the same volume, the same inputs as you do in your home market. And being able to create that same volume inside other markets as you do in your home market, that's where you will be truly win. This was for us the big breakthrough for the German brand. Just create a ton of ads for that market. And we were already doing that for Holland. So we're just remaking all the Dutch ads also into Germany. And from there, doubling and doubling our testing and just keeping up the pace. So what we suggest there is at least allocate a €1,500 a month budget so you can keep testing all those creatives. And if you can keep testing, you are persistent. You don't stop. And if you don't stop, you will always win at the end. Yeah, it's saying, I saw a YouTube shorts this morning, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. Well, that's the here. That's this. Like keep testing 50 creators a month because you're already creating them for your home market. And just test them, allocate the budget, learn from them, and use those learnings again in your next creative testing. The volume required is the thing most brands fail on, because that's the part where it becomes a lot of work. So making sure you have your translation infrastructure with the content creators, make sure you have your shots ready on the culture, will make it way easier on the volume, because you only need to have the editing additionally. And especially if you have all the translations done correctly, you can scale up that way. And to really scale up, there's the last part of the hard edge. It's the composable part. With other words, modular building, which means that you don't build your briefs and your scripts for just one unique creative anymore. It's a way of work content creators prefer to work in. So it just gives you one video with one script. That's it. If you want to have another video, you need to work again on a full new script with a full new content creator, one language, one ad, one angle. That's it. Instead of that, you should switch your focus from a one-off project to a stock library. So think of your own content as a stock library and start labeling it as a stock library. That way, you have all those you can overcome all those cultures. 2, you can start hiring content creators from all across Europe. So you have a way bigger pool of creators to match all your brand needs and shop needs as well. And you can just plug and play way faster. So you don't need to wait every time on your content creators, which enables you to create 50 creators a month with a way lower creator cost bill. Secondly, to do the same with your translations. So every brand has the standard callouts, has standard benefits, has standard framings. Of course, you can play with your copywriting, but make sure you have all those translated and make a stockpile of those translations. So it's sort of an off the shelf. You can just take the shots. You can take your benefits and your value drivers, and from there, people will be able to create your ads for you. Internally, we have two big files for this. If you want, please ask me. I am going to share it with a few, not everyone. It's called the brand value proposition, and the other one is the modular shot list. The brand value proposition are these translations. What are the value propositions? What are the use cases? What are the benefits? And have those translated up front. It just saves you so much time. And it enables you to just keep creating different frames, different reasons, different hooks, without going to the translator every time and without going to a content creator every time. And then modular shot list, preferably start doing this if you have no content at all, because then you start from zero and you can start building. Otherwise, start building now. Make a list of all the shots you can think of for your brand, start labeling them, and start putting together a database. We do this personally inside Google Drive with a clear description so you can find them easily later as well. So you have the problem, for example. You have a certain problem. Let's say you sell pens, and the problem is your pen is empty. So you need to find a new way. Well, an empty pen, you can show that shot or that problem in a gazillion different ways. Let me just do an example. The first one can be you're writing and it stops. Number two, you see it's empty. Number three, it's really urgent. You need to sign a really important contract, and midway of your signature, your pen dies. These are three different shots, but every shot can be taken like 20 times by 20 different content creators. Make sure you label the use case one by one and then bundle the different versions of the use case underneath your database. It's a ton of work and it requires quite strict labeling. But if you do this, you're able to update them into every language you're after. And you don't need to wait, and you can just be way more strategic on the content you purchase. So you will, over time, start saving on your content instead of keep investing in new content creators every single month, negotiating everything. So composability is making it almost like a Lego block that you can still start building. It takes it some time to build, but once you have it there, believe me, you will thank me. And it will not only help you in your home market, but mainly push out in all those other countries as well. Then I have a little bonus for you, number 5, which is more of the foundation that can fuel back in towards those 4 bullets. And it's log your learnings. It's a relatively new insight in our company, and no one likes to do this, but make sure you start logging all your tests, all your learnings per ad set, per country. So make a spreadsheet, begin at the top, date, name, what do you want to know, and has that test been successful or not, and are there any other insights you took? So which angle was it? What type of hooks are working? What type of edits? Because that can, of course, differentiate per country. You don't want to segment already per country, but that way you can start learning what is working for me per country. And if you know that, later on you can say, okay, I don't need to have these type of creators anymore because these don't work in any of my countries. And these work really well, so you can fuel your creative strategy way better across all the different countries as well. To give you a perspective how this looks like, so what is the end result of those type of videos? I'm looking at videos specifically here. It also works for statics. Here you see 6 different languages, 3 different brands, with every video in both different languages. You see the shots don't always match up. That's because voiceovers can differentiate. But this is the same story, the same hook, the same storyline, the same angle, the same hypothesis. And this is the way you really, really skill. This is the way you can put in one time the investment in writing the script, one time the investment in the strategy, one time the investment in buying the content, And from there, keep duplicating and duplicating and duplicating into all the other languages without doubling your ad cost. This is the end result we're after. So one final time. We have the language and culture, and we have the volume and composable. You should make sure you're focused on those 4 assets inside your strategy and your execution inside Europe. I cannot guarantee you, but I'm really, really certain you will win over time. Maybe not in a month, maybe not in 2, but if you could persist, you do this for 6 months, you will find winners. You will find ways to get the audience to buy your product. How does it look like in numbers? Well, for some of our clients, these were the results. We had a pet brand that scaled from 11K a month, so they just started in Germany, to 80K plus a month in just a year, profitably, while also doubling their Dutch shop. We worked with a poster brand that was stuck for more than 2 years on a certain level in Sweden. They were a Danish company themselves. And they were finally able to grow again because there was a substantial input of creatives, and these creatives worked as well in the country. We work with a wall decoration brand that grew 100% in just the first 2 months in 8 different languages and 8 different countries. While they will be testing those for years already before, just by consistent, persistent, and quality testing. And lastly, example number 4, we had a B2B company we work with from Belgium. They will be able to cut their cost per lead by more than 50% in Belgium, the Netherlands, and France, so 2 different language regions, after testing new creatives that match the culture, match the language, and on volume. So, what will you take from this today? That's the big question. You've been listening to me now for about 40 minutes, and I want to ask you to just don't keep this information into your head. Don't keep it there, because most losers are seeking new information, but winners just do. So the brands we speak with that are true winners, they hear this, they say, cool, thanks, I get this. And they take action and they want to execute this. And to make that execution and that action for you really, really easy, I give you 2 CTAs, so 2 plans, which is the worst marketing thing I can do, but I do it for you. Option number 1 is you just book in a call straight with me. If you're running if you're running already in multiple countries, or you're on the edge of going into those different markets, this is your perfect option. We will go over it together. We'll look, okay, what is the best plan for you to find the countries you want to enter? What do we need? How much content library do we build up? And how do we help you build up this system? If you're like, no, Volker, thank you, but I'm going to do this myself, you're more than welcome. Or you're just a little bit on the earlier side, then already start building on this as well. You can email me on forward@explicit.com, and I will send you a free culture guide for the 5 biggest blocks inside Europe, together with a go-live planning. So you know exactly which culture things and languages to look for, where to optimize for, and what planning to maintain to make sure you're on pace to reach the targets, so we can later do it for you as well. I would really, really like to thank you for your time today. If there are any questions, please drop me an email. We'll reply as soon as possible. Or you're like, no, focus, let's get this done. We're really looking forward to see you on the call together. You can schedule this on our website. And thanks a lot for today. Bye.